game like this, CFP, big road environment, what was that to you?
I think this is honestly what you dream of when you're a kid, playing in front of 100,000 people, all rooting against you. And so I think that we have a real unique opportunity, something that a lot of us dreamed about since we were kids. And so getting an opportunity to go out to Happy Valley, play, hopefully in the snow or something like that. Like something like that is really when you're a kid and it's cold. Like that's what you look at. You watch those playoff games and Green Bay and Buffalo, those type of games, and Kansas City where it's real cold, and the teams that come out on top are usually the teams that end up having enough resilience to end up winning the whole thing.
Hoping for some snow there?
Yeah, I never had a snow game. Played in some cold temperatures, but nothing like enough snow. So that'll be my first. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
What are you seeing out of Penn State's offense, what they're able to do?
Yeah, I think it starts. The head of the snake is Tyler Warren, awarded the best tight end in the country, right? So he's a great player. Does a lot in terms of catching the ball, wildcat quarterback. He has thrown some touchdown passes this season too. So he just presents a lot of challenges. Big frame, big body, uses his body and his frame well, catches well off of his body, and so he's the focal point. Obviously, they have two running backs, both of them 800, I want to say, yards rushing. So a real good 1-2 punch. And then Drew Allen is a talented quarterback. Can make those throws in the seams, make those throws outside. So really you can tell if a quarterback's good if they can throw that, come back to the field from the opposite hash, and he has enough arm talent to do that. And so, real good unit, and it's going to be a good challenge for us.
Do you see any similarities from other teams that you guys have faced in, what is one of the premier Big Ten brands of football?
Not necessarily. I would say that they do things similarly to Louisville a little bit in terms of how they want to, run the ball, control the game, but also challenge your eye discipline. Louisville did a couple of stuff with, tight end leagues and tight end hides, and some boots to really challenge your eye discipline. So I would say probably that's the closest one I would say similar to. The tight end is, as a little bit bigger than the tight end at Clemson that we had faced last week. But similar how they want to utilize him a lot and be a focal point of that offense.
Heading into game 14 here, and there's even potential for more games after this. Can you kind of talk about where you feel like you are physically? How does it kind of compare to previous years? I mean, I don't know when you start having the thought that, hey, maybe this season goes even longer than, once past, where you kind of have that.
Yeah, I think we're good. I think Coach Grizz does a great job in training us to continue to withstand the longevity of the season. We're not killing ourselves on back squat, but we're also running and hitting speeds that we need to be hitting in order to stay healthy with soft tissue injuries and things of that nature. And so body wise, I think I'm feeling good. I know guys on the team are feeling similar to me. It's almost we had that 10-day break to where guys who were banged up from the Clemson game ended up, getting a chance to, rest a little bit, have extra days for recovery and more treatment. And so I think the way the schedule is with, 10 days in between games was something I was thinking it was just going to be like the next week. I'm like, dang, that's going to be a lot of games, in a short amount of time. But having that buffer and that break is something that's beneficial for us.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a topic of conversation about Coach Grizz, the work that you guys do before the season to kind of get ready. Since you've been here, how has your physicality evolved? Have you learned anything new about what you're able to do, how you're able to go about that?
Yeah, I would say just being a little bit more intentional with my training and my regimen. I wasn't a guy that had got hurt a lot when I was at Stanford, and so being able to just be a little bit more intentional with whether that's okay, like I might be having a hamstring deficiency for a week. Okay, I'm doing something in the training room to make that deficiency go away. So just being a veteran about it, being a pro, and trying to be proactive with injuries that might sustain throughout the season and being able to lessen it.
There's been an emphasis to start fast all season long, and oftentimes people might relate that to the offense, but how much does starting fast stem from the defense?
Yeah, I mean, typically, if you watch a SMU game, whether we win the toss or lose the toss, like our offense is going out first. And so being able to start fast as a defense and getting that 3 and out, and getting our offense the ball back with a chance to, score again, I think that's something for us that we want to improve on. Last week, obviously, didn't have the best job of starting fast. Ended up kind of getting into the game a little bit later. But I think starting fast and especially being on the road in a difficult environment that can take the momentum out of a stadium. And so for us, we just want to do our job, limit explosives, stop the run, and really start fast.
Jonathan, you got a lot of guys who are announcing that they're planning to come back already for this next season. I know your eligibility will be up, but I was wondering, how have you kind of seen that change for a player, where they're having to make these decisions and they're maybe still having to compete in games like this next week, potentially be playing more and more games. Have you kind of seen that change around college football?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit weird. I had talked to a couple of the guys that had announced that they were coming back. I'm like, I didn't even know like you were thinking about leaving, but they ended up wanting to fend off anybody that had any thoughts that they were going to go anywhere else. And so I think that it's difficult to kind of deal with in terms of where we are trying to prepare, for a playoff game, but also you have guys in situations to where they need to move on elsewhere and go to another school and feel that that's what's best for them, and the clock's ticking. And so people whose seasons are done, they have chances to make decisions a little bit earlier than people that are in this 12-team playoff. And so I think it's a weird spot in college football, and it's something that I didn't have to deal with when I first came out, and definitely something I didn't have to deal with when I was coming out of high school.
All right, let's go to the Zoom portion. Hey, just right to the screen. Lawrence, go ahead.
First we'll go Chris Vanini.
Hey Jonathan, Chris Vanini from The Athletic. You were made a team captain this year, and so were Kevin and Preston. Kind of rare to have two quarterbacks. What did it say about them that they both were given that opportunity, and how have you seen kind of Kevin grow in that role?
Yeah, I think going into the season, we had an idea as a team of who the guys that vocally were leaders in terms of how they prepared, how they talked to us during workouts. So I think it speaks to the maturity of the team. We had guys, that had multiple votes that, weren't, one of the 6 captains, but Kevin has really grown into that role. I'd say it started really from the summer, getting a chance to, if you really meet Kevin, the first time you meet him, like, he's real shy, he's quiet, but the more you get to know him, the more personality comes out, the more goofy he is, the more relaxing he is and relatable. And so getting a chance to see him evolve from even my first year to my second year, I think that was kind of the biggest thing with Kevin. He's growing into this role, he's stepping into this role. And as well as Preston's still, leading guys on the team, still, listen to Preston. Preston still has a voice on his team. And he's done a great job in adjusting to his role and whatever the team has needed. And so I think both of those guys have done a great job.
Next we'll go to Andrea.
Hey Jonathan, Andrea Adelson with ESPN.com. Thanks for doing this. Brian, I've heard you and other teammates say this is what you dream about, playing on the road in front of 100,000 people, and I have to know why. Going on the road, playing in front of 100,000 people is something you dream about. What is appealing about that?
I think everybody everybody likes to be the villain at times. And so when you go into an environment where people aren't necessarily wanting the best for you, there's nothing better than when you win that game and it's not like they can't say anything to you. And so I think a lot of us on our team have been, quote unquote, overlooked, quote unquote, not necessarily given the best opportunity or felt like they've been given the best opportunity. So I feel like a lot of us have chips on our shoulders, whether that was from previous schools, high school, whatever the case may be. And so I think going into a hostile environment, you get a chance to get an even bigger chip on your shoulder and get a chance to really silence a lot of people and a lot of critics.
Next we'll go to David Hale.
Hey Jonathan, 2 quick questions for you if you don't mind. Number one, you talked a little bit about eye discipline earlier. I know Penn State, their offensive coordinator referred to his offensive scheme as a Dairy Queen Blizzard, where it's mostly vanilla ice cream, but they put a lot of different sort of treats into the mix to make it seem like something more. I'm curious, how do you maintain that eye discipline? How do you not get distracted by all the different things that they're trying to do pre-snap to try and confuse you?
Yeah, I would say it really comes down to preparing for it, understanding, watching tape, understanding that what you see isn't always what you're going to get. And at the end of the day, like when a ball is snapped, what that final formation is what they're going to be running. And so I think having a calmness about you, and that calmness comes from preparing at a high level. So watching film, practicing all different types of formations, going through things in your head mentally before the snap. That if this guy motions, okay, what's my assignment? If this guy, moves to a different spot, like what am I supposed to do? So thinking about things pre-snap can help you post-snap. So I think that having that maturity, having that calmness about yourself, and that just comes from preparation.
And then the other thing, you talk about the chip on your shoulder, you guys being overlooked. Obviously, SMU, fairly or not, was sort of viewed as the last team into the playoff. Do you guys feel like you have something that you need to prove in this? Do you feel like it's sort of incumbent upon you guys to prove that you belong here by putting up a great performance, or is that something that really doesn't matter in the larger calculus of like, hey, we just want to go win the game?
I think we feel like, not necessarily want to prove doubters wrong, but I feel like we want to prove ourselves right more than anything, and understanding of how talented we are. We deserve, to be at this stage and on this platform. And so based on the things we've done throughout this season, I feel like we just want to prove ourselves right and prove ourselves that, Coach Lashley, believes in us, prove, our families right, all the people that support us, and understanding how much work we put into this. And so I don't think it's necessarily proving doubters wrong, quote unquote, is motivating us, but I feel like it's more proving ourselves right and understanding how talented we are, and when we're firing on all cylinders, how dangerous of a team we can be.